You're listening to episode 71, a 12-minute talk. How to talk to kids when a parent has cancer. Hello, my friends. I am so happy you are here today. You have landed on the first part of a series that we are calling a 12-minute talk. If you're here at Child Life on Call for the first time, welcome. I'm very glad you're here. I'm Katie, and I am a certified child life specialist. If you've never heard of that before, that's okay. I'm going to give you the elevator speech. We're really good at this, explaining what we do over and over and over again. Basically, we help kids and families understand and learn about medical experiences and challenging life events. We work in hospitals, outpatient settings, schools, hospice, children's advocacy centers. Pretty much wherever you find kids coping with medical issues of any kind, you'll find us, or you should find us. And the field just keeps growing, which is really exciting for child life specialists. But this podcast was actually created in 2017 as a way to give parents and caregivers a safe place to share their journeys and experiences. So often, the feeling of overwhelm, dread, and isolation creep in when your child is sick, when your child is going through something traumatic, when your child has surgery, when your child has a disability. Those are very common feelings to have. And if you're not connected with other people exactly in your shoes, then it can be really hard to find someone to relate to you. And that feels incredibly lonely. And you want to know the last thing we want you to feel when your child is going through something? Lonely. So this podcast was born, and we are over 70 episodes in now of parents sharing stories. And I've said this before, if you've listened to this podcast, you know, it actually doesn't have to be the same diagnosis as your child, but I bet you will listen to another parent speak, and they will speak to your heart in a way that you never thought anyone else could. They get it. So I have the honor of facilitating these amazing interviews with inspiring parents who talk a lot about the good, a lot about the bad, and kind of everything in between. So nothing is too dark of a topic for us. Nothing is too light of a topic. So we're just so glad you're here. The other part that's really hard when you're a parent and you have a child who has medical issues of any kind, it's really hard to get the effort to actually go meet people, right? And to go to those play groups and playgrounds and muster up any energy outside of what it's taking to support your child. So what I love about this podcast is we make it super simple for you. All you have to do is press play and listen. Another really hard part that people find about having a child who has to go through any kind of medical experience or challenging life events is actually finding information on how to talk to your kids about those things. So that's what this 12-minute talk is going to do. We're going to talk about different topics that I've gotten in my DMs over the years, common questions I hear from parents and caregivers, and we're going to tackle those head on so that you leave this 12-minute talk with having a better understanding of how to navigate difficult topics with your child. Really, what we want to do is empower you to find the words to say and feel like you can have difficult conversations with your child and that you're not shying away from those conversations for fear of saying the wrong thing. So that's why we're here. You're going to leave feeling better, more equipped, more empowered, like you've got the tools and the language to use, and that's our goal for this series. So I'm so glad you're here. Please stick around for the rest of our series. We're going to have it every other week, so you'll hear a parent story one week, and then you're going to hear a 12-minute talk with either just myself or another expert within the child life field. If you would like to submit a topic, we would love to hear it. So send us a DM at Child Life on Call on Instagram or Facebook, or you can send me an email at hello@childlifeoncall.com. Hey guys, did you know Child Life on Call is more than just a podcast? We have free resources for parents, kids, and professionals. And by the way, a new app coming out in 2022. We will be partnering with facilities to empower and educate kids, parents, and the care team, and we want you to be a part of it. Sign up to have the facility you visit or work for be one of the first to have access at childlifeoncall.com. Okay, so last week on the podcast, we had the honor of meeting Sarah. And Sarah is a single mother of a 6-year-old girl. And when Sarah was 34 years old, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. I know, it feels overwhelming to hear about such a young person getting diagnosed. And I want you to go back and listen to her episode because Sarah does an amazing job of telling us about how she told her child that she had cancer. And so I'm going to use some of the words that she used, and then I'm going to spin it with child life language and some other ways to do it. So, first and foremost, you're going to hear me say this a lot when we're talking about difficult conversations. And I think the important thing that I want you to digest today is that a conversation is not a single sit down moment. It doesn't have to be a family meeting at the dinner table. It doesn't have to be a one on one conversation. The biggest thing you can do is open up conversation for it to happen organically whenever it wants to. So, by showing your child that a conversation doesn't have to end just because you're done talking at that moment, will allow them to be able to process information and come back and talk to you at different times. The other thing I want you to know is that kids process things in really different ways. So, you may have one child that reacts one way and another child that reacts the opposite way. And that is normal. We are all processing things in our different way. So you might have an idea about how a child may react, and then they may do the opposite. And just set your expectations for these conversations. You can drop something really heavy, like really, really heavy, and then the kid can go ask to play video games. We've seen it before. That's what happens. That's what kids do, and that's okay. So as we navigate this specific question, how to tell a child that the mom or the dad or a very close grandparent has cancer. So I'm talking about someone in that nuclear unit that is diagnosed with cancer or a terminal illness, and you don't know how to tell the child. Your instincts say, don't tell them. Your instincts say, I don't want them to be upset. I don't want them to feel scared. I don't want them to think that they're going to die. Just your mind goes there. And so what you're doing is you're kind of protecting yourself, and you think you're protecting your child from that. There's a problem with that. The problem is that kiddos understand and are aware of more than you actually realize. So while you think you're doing a great job of keeping this a secret, it probably is not a secret to them. They either can see your emotions have changed, somebody is going to the doctor more, things are more tense at home. And so what they're doing then is then creating stories around why things are tense at home. Is it something the child did? Are they mad at the child for some reason? What's happening? Why haven't we seen grandma in a while? So kids are starting to question then what's happening and why are things tensing up? So actually finding time to have a conversation to get away from those ambiguous misconceptions that kids are making up, because they definitely are in their own head, you're actually providing them with something to think about, right? You're giving them something to understand. And so we can talk about how to explain cancer. And I think Sarah did such an amazing job with this in the episode, and she's actually written a book about it. And it's actually a common analogy that we use, and it's this good guys, bad guys thing, right? And I think whenever you're talking with kids about cancer or terminal illness, it's really good to say things in a concrete way they can understand. So pull from their own experiences. If this is the age of superheroes, then let's pull on that. If this is the age of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let's pull from that. If this is Star Wars, what can we pull from? So something they have a preconceived idea about that we can relate to this experience. In very simple term, our body is made up of cells. And sometimes these cells get sick. And when these cells get sick, it's called cancer. So I actually want you to use the word cancer. An important thing you're going to hear me say is that we need kids to understand that people do not do anything wrong to get cancer. Although their cells are sick, it's not because they ate anything or did anything wrong or took some medicine that they shouldn't have. No, we just kind of need to clear that up when we're talking with kids about this. This is not anything that they did wrong, that they ate or drank. Sometimes these cells just get sick. Sometimes we have a family history of cells that get sick. So in Sarah's case, she had a family member that also had breast cancer. And so she was talking a bit about that and how so she was aware of it, and her parents were aware that maybe she would get breast cancer because it had been in her family. So she sits down and she says, these cells have gotten sick and they need some medicine to help them get better. And that medicine is called chemotherapy. So just right then and there, we've taken a really complex issue like cancer and we've put it in a way that kids can understand. Okay, so then you want to start talking about what do the cells in the child's body do, right? They help them breathe, they help them walk, they help them think. And when cells are sick, then they're not able to do that like normal. So if they're seeing some physical changes, like a parent getting tired more often, or a parent wanting to sleep more, or a parent not able to walk as much because they've got some aches, that's a way to explain that those cancer cells are making them feel sick. And chemotherapy or radiation or whatever that treatment may be is there to attack those cells that are sick. I love how Sarah puts it because she also talks about how sometimes chemotherapy is not that smart and it can also attack the good guy cells. So the good guy cells are things that make our hair, right? So sometimes if the medicine gets to the hair cells, it'll make your hair fall out. And that's why you may see somebody who is bald going through cancer. And so I love that analogy, but we've just really kind of made this really concrete in a way that kids can understand. One of my favorite things to say along this point of the conversation is that cancer can make a lot of things feel sick and a lot of things act like they shouldn't. But one thing cancer can't do is take away how much you love someone and how much they love you. So although this cancer has a lot of power to make a body sick, what it can't do is change a relationship or a love or something that two people have. And I love pointing that out to kids and families when you're talking about a heavy topic like cancer. The other thing I want to tell you is as you're explaining cancer to a child is you need to take in their development and also assess as you're talking about things. If a child is turning away physically from you or changing the subject, they're not ready to hear it yet. And they're going to come back and ask you a question when they're ready. Okay. You just end the conversation and say, look, I can tell you're not really wanting to talk about this right now. And that is totally fine. But just know that I'm here to talk about it with you whenever you want. If you have questions, if you're upset, come talk to me or name another adult that they can go talk to. I want you to go back and listen to Sarah's episode too, because she also talks about how her daughter immediately asked, "Are you going to die?" Right? And that is probably every parent's worst nightmare is telling your child that you have cancer and then they ask, "Are you going to die?" And you can handle this a lot of different ways. And Sarah was really aware of what her treatment plan was going to be like, exactly how they were going to fight this cancer, and she kind of got to really confidently say no. But unfortunately, that is not always the case for some types of cancer. And so that question, "Are you going to die?" is a really tough one to swallow. And it's okay to say, "I don't know, but I'm going to work really hard with the doctors and get the medicine that I need to make sure that I do everything I can to stay healthy." Right? So, whoa, I know that's really hard to think about saying to your child, but you're starting an open, honest conversation. When you're telling your child hard news like this, I think it's also important to tell the adults in their life, like their teachers or a counselor or their pediatrician, that they're having to handle some hard things at home. So that way you've got a group and community of trusted adults around your child that are helping and looking out for them. All right, I wish I had more time, but I promised y'all this would just be 12-minute talk about cancer. Okay, so I would love for you to reach out, come talk to me if you want any feedback. This is not a one-size-fits-all tool. These are just words and things that I want you to think about and then cater it to your family and feel what's best. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait for you to listen to next week's episode when I get to interview Lori from Hope for Henry and hear their amazing story. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again next week. Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.